Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I had to rush home. Fortunately, I live close by to get my Parisian ladies. I picked up the wrong one. Okay, so I used to live in Paris, and when I was in Paris, I was dealing between London and Paris in collectibles. When I first began my life as a brocante dealer between London and Paris in 1977, I would déballe at Marché Montreuil at 6:30 in the morning in all weathers, even in misty rain. Today, in 2018, wrote it last year, I asked myself how I could have been so stupid and gauche, spreading my good quality English collectibles stock on the ground, watching and waiting for punters. What a hard life it was, sur les trottoirs de Paris. But oh, such fun, without a care in my crazy Mickey Mouse world. One early, damp, grey morning, a white van, driven by a French postcard dealer called Alexandre, was backing out of his spot in the market and didn't see my rubbish on the wet ground, covered with plastic as protection against the elements, and thus he ran over and flattened my precious collection, ruining my stock. He just laughed. When I shouted at him, pointing out what he'd done, ruining my stock, he just laughed, shrugged his shoulders and drove off. If they weren't postcards, it was for la poubelle, for the rubbish. I never forgot his insolent, phallocratic behaviour, and the incident later ignoring this bombastic dealer when I saw him running around the ephemera and postcard fairs in Paris. I was later told by dealers in the know that he specialised in erotica, but I didn't care, as I wasn't interested in doing business with Alexandre Dupois, even though years later I ventured gingerly into that themed area through happenstance. The decades passed and my dealing days ended, turning my stock and private collection into a themed commercial nostalgia picture library called Retrograph Archive. After all, why sell an image when you can license reproduction rights and get to keep the original image? Have your cake and eat it too. One of my themes was erotica. This is a reproduction of one of the many sepia postcards. I had about 200 of them. And the girls were several alluring, sexily dressed sepia, I called them ladies of the night postcards, along with 1940s American era Betty Page, black and white posed bondage photographs. But the Parisian ladies were erotic in the 20s, with garters, some wearing negligés and others topless but never bottomless, being scantily dressed at all times. Their faces became so familiar, it was like having a relationship with these lovely ladies. None of them looked like sluts. I made sure that I picked them for their attractive smiles and sensual bodies. They all looked like they were enjoying themselves, sitting on beds or lounging around, resting on decorative, distinctly designed Art Deco oval cushions. Some wore dark school uniforms with white blouses, but no panties, carrying books, and some showed their provocative garters with laddered stockings, while others were doing surreal things like ironing or telephoning. My favourite, lacy petticoat-clad lady, was holding a whip across her knee, sitting demurely, waiting patiently for her victim. Back in London, I was contacted by the formal, bespectacled picture researcher Emily, working for Wordsworth Editions, who were publishing a series of out-of-print erotic books. They needed a good selection of sepia, glimpse of stocking was something shocking, ladies, for their enticing sepia vintage-looking paperback covers. So Emily and I would scrutinize my ladies, but not showing boobs or nipples at any cost. Emily was so matter-of-fact in her professional research that we could have been looking at household, domestic, consumer products. No raised eyebrows for this spinster, who was efficient in her job, of course. No amusement or humour the day she came round to source, not sauce, S-A-U-C-E. As I was going to Paris to hunt for more images for Retrograph, my vintage nostalgia archive, it was suggested that I browse at Les Larmes de Hérault at 58 Rue Amelot in the 11th district to find my ladies. How was I to know that the shop gallery was owned by my arch enemy, Alexandra? However, the gallery was thankfully managed by his hard, po-faced, black-haired, fringed, very Parisian, scarlet bow-lipped Louise Brooks look-alike wife. She and I had been introduced at a paper fair, and she invited me to come to the gallery, enticing me with the promise of hundreds of sepia lady visuals in all shapes and sizes. I arrived with the sole intention of finding my ladies, nothing more, nothing less. She escorted me to a large central table that occupied most of the ground floor area, but oddly she stood pouting behind a circular small reception desk, watching and waiting. For what? For who? I was soon to find out. An erotic clock hung on the wall with female black stocking legs and red garters, moving with every minute in different positions. The stark white walls were adorned with black and white modern art erotica framed in black, so the effect was quite striking. Black and white and black, with a hint of provocative scarlet here and there. I excitedly sat with 4 shoeboxes of vintage postcards I had all afternoon. I had reserved the time. As I flicked through the sepia images, head down, concentrating, the doorbell rang and a man entered, moving around behind me silently, as there was not much room to swing a cat. I didn't look up, but kept focusing on my delectable ladies. Then the doorbell sounded again and again. Men were walking around me, looking at the walls silently but purposefully, before disappearing into the basement area where the rare, explicit, sadomasochistic photographs were on display for a limited time. Out of curiosity, I had to venture down the stairs. Ooh la la, what an education. Photos of lesbians fondling each other, penetration, Japanese bondage, threesomes, blowjobs, handjobs, S&M, whips and leather bondage, all very kinky and so French, from Alexandra's private collection, which was famous. Some rare ones coming from the French actor Michel Simon's famous erotic collection. Alexandra had published several photographic books, having found his niche, and the demand was rife without any competition. Prints, books, limited editions, reproductions in his explicit photographs, and who knows what other services were on sale in the gallery. I felt very aware I was out of my comfort zone, but on a focused mission. Not, however, thinking of missionary positions, but thinking of book jackets and a proposed poster book of 30 Parisian ladies, that's one of each one of whom I would have to name. I looked into their silent faces, thinking of frivolous names like Mimi, Fifi, Miu Miu, as if calling them travelling through time to the world beyond. That was in the late 80s. Today, 20 years on, the shop cum gallery is still open, but I am no longer looking for these smiling, enticing ladies frozen in time, nor venturing into the underbelly of the shop to be educated.